My name's Sean, and I'm from New Hampshire, born and raised. I grew up down in Derry, went to school at Plymouth State, and that's how I became associated with D Acres and so many good people around here and so many other things. But since the end of school, into college like 5 years ago, I've been living mostly in North Conway, Plymouth, Rumney, and I spent the last summer in a tree house here on this farm, and that was really, really nice. But what we're going to talk about today is I just returned home from about a 7.5-month-long trip of activism, really. And as much as I'd like for my life to be focused on farming and permaculture and all those beautiful community building things right now, there's a lot of big issues that we're all facing. And some of these issues are bigger than New Hampshire, and they're bigger than D Acres. And so after the elections last fall, which were a hard time for most of us, I was kind of doing some self-reflection, and I had personally run for state representative over in North Conway to become a state representative and do some work in Concord and try to start to do change that way. And that also didn't really work out as I was hoping. So I decided to hit the road and spend the winter kind of exploring myself, exploring the world, exploring the movement, exploring this country. And that was right about the time when Standing Rock out in North Dakota was really heating up and really becoming confrontational, and a lot of us weren't sure where that was going to head. So a quick story on Standing Rock is a little over a year ago, last April of 2016, the pipeline that we all know as the Dakota Access Pipeline was under construction. And as an activist and as progressives or whatever we want to call ourselves, we understand the importance of infrastructure, and we understand, we're not just blindly saying no more. But this specific pipeline was originally slated to go north of North Dakota, through the North Country, through Bismarck, and the most direct route to Louisiana. But it got radically shifted, kind of very quickly, and the pipeline was moved away from Bismarck and down south a couple dozen miles towards the reservation of Standing Rock. And that's a very common theme with these infrastructure projects is they'll be proposed one way and they'll be approved and kind of out of the media, and then it will be moved away from the whiter communities of more resources that have more access to money and things and the ability to fight these projects, and it will get imposed on a community usually of color, but it can happen to white people, it can happen to all of us, and they don't have the resources or the education or the ability to fight it and make change. And that was kind of the story with the Dakota Access Pipeline. And it was put right above the reservation, the Standing Rock Sioux. It was only 500, 600 yards north of the line, if you can even accept the fact that there is a line on the reservation. And the biggest deal that they were having with this is a potential spill of that pipeline, a leak. And this pipeline's underground, and it was going to go right underneath the Missouri River. And if that thing breaks or leaks, which it will someday, it's going to contaminate their drinking water and their agriculture water. And basically the only thing that keeps them alive right now is the fact that they have water, because they don't have much else. And so that's why so many people stood up with Standing Rock last year to say, no more oppression, no more institutional racism and environmental racism, and this is just unacceptable on so many levels. If that pipeline leaks on their water, that culture is going to be gone. That nation, the Standing Rock Sioux, they might not survive it, because they don't have anywhere else to go. They don't have the ability to heal themselves and the medical attention that it would need. And it would just be gone. And we've seen how the government responds to New Orleans after Katrina, a community of color. We see how they respond to Flint, Michigan, a community of low income. And so when they lose the ability to drink water, it's true death, and it's the end of a culture. And so that all kind of, and Standing Rock was really building up over the summer of 2016, and it was escalating with what we call direct action. And so the pipeline was being built, and there was no way to stop it from the executive branch or the ways that we would try to stop a project like this. And so it came down to people standing in front of bulldozers and holding hands to make sure that bulldozer didn't work that day. Or it came down to somebody being willing to chain themselves to an excavator, so that excavator can't perform the work. And so that's what direct action is. It's us using our last resource as the people, it's our bodies, to actually get the change that we need and make it more expensive, delay it, whatever it is that we can do. And there's hundreds of ways to creatively stop the progression of pipeline or anything else like that, whether it's forestry or whether it's the construction of a nuclear plant in Seabrook, New Hampshire, which there are many people in this room remember or maybe participated in. So that was building up all summer, and it was leading, and through the use of social media, the whole world was seeing the oppression that was also building up, and the police brutality, and the militarization of private police forces. And they brought in militarized mercenaries who specialize in fighting, the terrorism in the Middle East. And now, for the first time in history, we had those people being paid on U.S. soil, using the same tactics and the same vocabulary and the same, that's their business. And they were also telling the police what to do every morning, and they were presenting little bios of the leaders of camp. And it was the first time it got to this level, and that I know of, and that most of us know of. And it culminated. It culminated on November 20th was the night, and that was the night that there was an action on the bridge, because there was a bridge just to the north of camp you could walk through, and that was the bridge to get to the other side, and there was a roadblock there. And so some of the water protectors, which is the title that the people out there protesting with, that's what they called themselves. They didn't want to be known as protesters because it's so stigmatized and things like that. So they tried to call themselves water protectors. And there was a couple hundred of them on the bridge trying to clear debris to get that bridge a little bit more accessible and open. And at 11 o'clock that night on November 20th, the police in North Dakota, the state police and the Bismarck police and the county sheriffs opened up fire hoses on unarmed protesters, for the first time in a generation in this country. And it was about 11 o'clock at night. It was 17 degrees, and they were being sprayed by, ice cold water. And it's a real gift that nobody died that evening, because that was a real threat. People were being pulled off the front line, wrapped in Mylar blankets as soon as they could. And when you're camping in a field, there's not many warm spaces to go. So it was a really bad night. And a lot of us watched that night live on Facebook, and that will probably be the moment in history that goes down. It's the first time Facebook Live exposed mass, injustice like that. And it was when I was watching it in bed in Holderness on November 20th, there was 55,000 people watching that video with me on Facebook. And so a lot of people that next day, November 21st, just decided more had to be done, and we could no longer just share things on Facebook, and signing petitions clearly wasn't doing it. And so the conversation started, what more can we do? And I was part of that conversation, and all of these people on this list were part of that conversation. And thousands of people around New Hampshire participated in that conversation over the next few weeks about what are we going to do as a state, as a community. And so we came up with this idea of sending supplies and getting to North Dakota. Because November 20th, winter's coming, they need help, they need more than t-shirts, they need more than food, they have all that stuff. And so the point of our trip was to bring them winter gear and to bring them our White Mountain experience and our knowledge of living in extreme conditions and having the right stuff to survive. And so for 2 weeks, well, the first thing we did was we came up with this image, and this image literally took less than 6 hours to fill out. We were at a coffee shop in Plymouth that morning and came up with the idea of having a map of New Hampshire with 10 stars, or however many it would turn out to be, but we had to be geographically dispersed, and we had to be accessible to the whole state. And within less than 6 hours, each of these stars had a name associated with it. And these are all personal friends of mine, and they're normal people, whether they're yoga instructors or state representatives or college friends or whatever. But every single person that I called first, it's who do I know on the seacoast? The first person I called said, yeah, of course you can put me on that. Who do I know in Colebrook? And only one person. So they said yes right away. And that was the cool part. Was right away. It was there was no resistance to this idea. The whole state was involved in the first day, and we were going to move forward. And so this image got over 100,000 hits on Facebook, in New Hampshire alone in the first 2 weeks. And for about 2 weeks, people all over the state would show up at these locations, and they would have their phone number and email here, and they would just drop off stuff, in my friend's living room or their garage. And they would be like, here's some boots that I have, here's some sleeping bags, here's camping stove, propane, whatever. And you can hit the next slide now at this point. And we got a whole bunch of stuff. There was about 10 people's living rooms that were just filled with stuff. it was like, Liz was one of the contacts in Keene, and I remember talking to her, she's like, Sean, you better have a big trailer, you know, because there's a whole bunch of stuff here, and everybody was going through this stuff and sorting it and making sure it was quality stuff and making sure it wasn't cotton. So everything we brought was good. You know, we showed up with a whole bunch of good gear, and people wrote little messages and poems and all this beautiful stuff from the people in New Hampshire. And it was really feel-good stuff for a while. It was a lot of fun. And we also raised $7,000, you know, in cash, like in that 2-week period too. So we had our stuff, we had money, and we needed to get to North Dakota. And I'm gonna, Joel, could you pass me that rag right there? Yeah. Thank you. And so, Mo, you can hit next. And so we ended up having so much stuff that what was going to just be my truck and a trailer going to North Dakota turned into 3 trucks, 2 trailers, whoa, all full of gear. There was like 6 or 7 of us that went. It was really awesome. We really turned it out. And we had to get there by December 5th. So the whole thing was we were going to do it for a few weeks and actually go like, you know, in a time frame. But the government and the Army Corps of Engineers released a statement saying on December 5th, Standing Rock was going to come to an end. They were going to come in and arrest anybody that was still there, and that it would be the end of the protest. So, like 20,000 people, you can hit next a few slides. So that's getting closer to North Dakota, you can hit next. And so this is December 5th at Standing Rock. And, you know, they made that announcement hoping to intimidate people and hoping that people would go away. Like, I don't want to get arrested in North Dakota. I don't want to be charged with engaging in a riot, which is what they were telling us. And it did not work. You know, this was one of the most beautiful days that I've ever been a part of. There was 15 to 20,000 people that descended. You know, the camp had an active population of like 5,000 at that point, which is very impressive. But for that day specifically, 20,000 people showed up and said, no, you don't decide when a protest ends. You don't tell us when we're going to leave. And it was magic. You can hit next now. So there's a drone shot of what camp looked like. That's right around December 5th. And so it's a community. You know, there's main roads, there's downtown, there's like the suburbs. That would be the bridge that I was mentioning. You can see the roadblock, you know, and this is actually pretty early in December because eventually this whole line is just barbed wire and lights. But you can see the construction of the pipeline is right there. So that's like, that was camp. You can go ahead and hit next now. And so, you know, the only thing I can really compare to being in that place as like something I had experienced was almost like a state fair. You know, like I thought about the Freiburg Fair when I was walking around there that first day because there was just people everywhere and there was signage and you had to go places and you had to, if you were new, people would find out you were new and you'd have to go to the tent that you learned how camp worked, and then you had to go to the legal tent, fill out your legal forms, and then you had to go learn how to use the composting toilet facility, and you had to, so there was like steps to get acclimated, and there was infrastructure. It was like a real community. You can see this is a coffee house, you know, open 24/7. There's coffee and tea there, and a whole bunch of cool stuff. It was nice. Go ahead and hit next now. And then, so that day was a really like crazy day, actually. December 5th, there was so much that happened. But we showed up, and everybody was there, and the Army Corps was like not going to come in and arrest 20,000 people. There's no way to do that. They didn't even have a choice. We took that choice away from them. But also that was the day, you know, as fate would have it, that Obama would remove the easement that they had. The company had the easement to dig underneath the Mississippi River and make that final crossing. Because at this point in the journey, the pipeline's 97, 98% built, and we're making the last stand where they cross the river, where they cross the aquifer, where they go underneath, you know, one of the biggest drinking water producers in our country. So that permit was revoked, you know, and in hindsight, it's almost impossible not to look at that as like a malicious intent, you know, from President Obama and from everybody else, because they knew that there was no way to move forward with this protest in the pipeline. And when that easement was removed, it was sold as a victory to the tribe. It was sold as a victory by the tribe. And it was sold that this pipeline had to go through the proper channels and the environmental review that you would expect, and it would be denied. And so that day, the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, led by a gentleman named Dave Archambault II, they asked for camp to be shut down. So they had them, the protest was over for the winter, and they said like the easement's been removed, and they wanted everybody to leave, you know. And so it was really contentious in camp, and there was Native leaders in camp, and there was Native leaders from Standing Rock Sioux tribe who were standing up and saying, no, like you do not, we can't shut this down. This is the most powerful thing the American Indian movement has had access to in a generation. And Donald Trump's going to be president in a month and a half. You know, this is people speaking on December 5th. They're like, this is not a victory. This is not over. The machines are still digging. Like, you can see them every day digging. They couldn't dig under the lake, but they were preparing to. And so a few thousand of us, with the help of Native leadership who were being very vocal, we decided to disobey the local tribe, at least the tribal council. You know, the general public of the tribe supported us, and that was important. But that was a really difficult thing to explain to like my friends and my family at home, because they'd see in the news like, Sean, the tribe wants you to go home. It's like, yeah, I know, but it's like way more complicated than out on the ground. And so that was like kind of the beginning of losing control of the narrative and losing control of the momentum. It was much harder to explain to people far away why this was still going on, why this was still happening. And so the third crazy thing that happened on December 5th was this blizzard rolled in. And so this photo was taken like 18 hours, maybe less, after that original photo with all the teepees. And this blizzard came in, and it was like the most intense storm I've ever gone through, without the ability to go hide inside somewhere. But you know, it was different than a New England blizzard. It was windier and it was snowier, and it lasted 3 days. And this storm, coupled with the denial of the easement, and coupled with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe asking people to go home, camp got diminished from like 15 to 20,000 people to, I'd say, less than 1,500 in 3 days. And so go ahead and hit next, Mo. So you can see we're still doing like actions in the blizzard and stuff at the very beginning, but it quickly turned into a very bad storm. You go ahead and hit next, Mo. And so what I went for the month of December, you know, I was expecting direct action. I was expecting risking arrest. I was expecting stepping into the uncomfortable and not being sure what's going to happen, and that's what I was prepared for. But when that storm came, and all of a sudden people had to leave, like for safety, you know, this wasn't a pack in, pack out, leave no trace kind of exit. It was like, if most of these people don't get out of here today, or in the next few hours, like they might die. You know, it's negative 10 degrees, and there's 3 feet of snow on the ground that's getting higher, and the wind, and tents are collapsing, and it was like, it was a chaotic scene, and it destroyed camp. That storm destroyed it. And so go ahead and hit next one. And lots of people were there in summer teepees, summer tents, structures are collapsing, like you're just getting people out of there. The casino turned into almost like a hostel, like people are just sleeping on the floors, and food's getting busted and everything. But the whole month of December really just turned into, there was not much protesting, not much activism going on, because it's in limbo as far as we can tell. And basically the whole idea was to hold space, and that's what the leaders that we were listening to were saying. It's like, look, we need to keep camp active, we need to be here for when construction begins again someday. And we just need to be able to facilitate the arrival of thousands of people, which is what we were expecting. So that was like the whole month of December was just going through, and it was rather apocalyptic and like really crazy, because you had a 20,000 person village that was destroyed in a storm, and then most people are gone. And so you're going through people's old homes that lived there for a while, and like you're digging out the tent, and then you're getting inside the tent, and then you're like finding their books and their propane and their medicine and their food, and you're like, all right, we can take all this stuff and like get that to the proper supply units. And so we're like just combing through camp for like weeks, and that's all we did. You know, you had to find the medical supplies, you had to find the propane, you had to find the firewood, and that's what we did for the month of December. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And this is a powerful photo. This is what we call Flag Road. And Flag Road came right, it's how you entered camp, and then it continued right through the middle of camp. And you would pretty much, you were relatively north of Flag Road or south of Flag Road. It was an important place in camp, but pretty much everybody who came brought a flag with them, and that flag ended up on Flag Road. And as you would go down, there was hundreds of flags, and it could be native and indigenous flags, but it could be, there were state flags, you know, there was international flags, there was firefighter unions, carpenter union, whatever your flag was, people brought, and it was on that road. and you could just walk it and see the flags, and it was like, probably it was just true unity. It was people standing together.
Where did the poles come from?
They were all trees and PVC and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. There was definitely no limit to resources at that place. Global support is like a real thing. It was pretty impressive. If you needed new boots, they were there. If your sleeping bag wasn't warm enough, you could go get a new one. Hot food.
But still using social media or just communication?
Yeah, there was social media. And there was media teams there, and there was a whole hill over here called Facebook Hill, and that's where the satellites were. And there was resources there. We had solar panels, we had composting toilet buildings, it was pretty incredible. There was an established community of resistance, and the global support was the most important part because the money was coming in from elsewhere, and the U-Hauls kept coming, and the food was coming in. There was propane trucks that would come and drive around and fill all the propane tanks and everything. It was
impressive.
Yeah, it wasn't hard to be there. It was difficult work, but it wasn't hard. Go ahead and hit next. There was tons of artwork and graffiti. Go ahead and hit next. This is right downtown, right on Flag Road. That was turned into the construction building. So, if you needed drills, you needed a sawzall, you needed a compressor. They had everything. It was interesting to live. It was a sharing economy. There was no exchange of money in Standing Rock. If you needed food, you went into the kitchen, you got food. And there was people that worked at the kitchen, because that was their duty. And so this idea of a sharing economy, it's like you have resource rich as a community, and then roles are filled autonomously. And some of it's anarchist, it's utopian,
So it's like Rainbow, but power tools.
Yeah, so kind of like a rainbow festival in the sense of and the whole key is the resources need to be available. And so that's what's unique about these things. It's even with Rainbow Fest, all those resources are brought in so the life can exist. And then, so that's the unique part, and why it can't just be blanketly applied to society. But in certain instances, when the resources are available, people do step up, and there is very little crime like that, and people fill the roles that they need to be filled. And it was magical to be a part of it. But yeah, it's just a moment in time, really. I don't know if we'll ever see global support like we did at Standing Rock again. Maybe I'm wrong, but just the focus of that much energy was a crazy spot to be standing in that field and to see it. And it was overwhelming sometimes. It was too much. Go ahead and hit next now. So that's the tent that I was living in for most of it, on a good day. And then if you hit next, I think it's on a colder day. And you can see this firewood, there was a gentleman who had a GoFundMe page online, and he was from South Dakota, and he raised his own money, and he would come and bring this firewood, and he would drop it off to certain people. And there was so many autonomous things that just made everything so possible that you can't even put your finger on, And it's because of the internet, it's because of social media, it's because of crowd fundraising, like the Bernie Sanders model that we saw work so well. So that's the benefit to all this technology. I don't know if this would have been possible in the 70s.
But was there internet access from inside the teepees?
No, the only internet, some carriers you could pick up service, like Verizon was pretty well, but that was the only one. But like I said, there was a place called Facebook Hill, and it had satellite dishes, and it had Wi-Fi, and that was the spot. You could go there and edit your videos and photos, and they had all printers.
Is that the source from which requests for supplies would go out?
Yeah, and even that, you can't put your finger on, it was so autonomous. It was rather anarchist. And there were leaders, and there were people that were respected and elders, but there was no effort. It was not authoritarian, it wasn't top-down ever.
Nobody ever tried to bomb your facility or shell it or anything?
Came close.
Did it?
Yeah, they never did, though. But, one day they pulled what's called the Avenger. First time an Avenger's ever been deployed on U.S. soil. We were sitting in camp, and it came up and over the hill. And an Avenger is a Hummer with surface-to-surface missiles on the back. Giant squares that are like a turret. And that thing just came up and over the hill and just parked one day. It's so what the hell is that thing doing? And they ended up removing it 3 days later and apologizing and going, well, we didn't stir controversy. It's what did you do? Of course. And that's the thing to realize about these projects, and like this idea of I'm going to do this until I can't get away with it, and that was already factored into the decision of aggression. You know, when you build a pipeline and you're going to oppress a community of color, and it's going to be found out to be illegal, like it is right now. How much is the fine? You know, it's factored into the cost of the project. You know, when they brought that Avenger over the hill, they knew that Avenger wasn't going to be illegal. You can't deploy military vehicles like that in the United States and not pay heat. But they did it anyways, because they knew it wouldn't be that much heat, and they wanted to scare us and to piss us off. And, you know, and so it's almost like a psychological condition of these, you know, of these corporations that we're fighting and up against. And when it turns out that the corporations can have access to our military, which is supposed to be protecting us, you know, the military had their backs to the pipeline the whole time. It's that simple, you know. Go ahead and hit next though. That's inside the tent. So we all had wood stoves. It was good. It was the months of December and January. You know, it was just about building community and living together and staying warm. And it was nice, you know. But then Donald Trump was about to get inaugurated, and that's like kind of chapter 2 of my trip. So I think if you hit next vote, there's a few more photos of just life at camp. Yeah, some good people there. Go to next. Next is one of the bus coming up. There it is. So towards the end of January, like, you know, we're all becoming pretty familiar with each other, and we're all kind of ready to be getting back into activism. Like, camp's looking pretty good. It's becoming pretty resilient. Systems are in place again. It took like that long to get back to that place. And we're expecting the spring to come soon, and for the media to start talking about standing rock again soon, you know. And so about 50 of us decided we were going to go to Donald Trump's inauguration, because no matter what we did at camp, the media wouldn't talk about us. And no matter how much we tried, it was like there was just so much suppression about getting the message out, about letting people know that this was still happening and the Native Americans are still being oppressed in 2017. And so we decided we'd go to the inauguration and bring that message of water is life, and No Dakota Access Pipeline, and Minnewachuny, and, you know, indigenous sovereignty, and all the interconnected issues that this represents. And so we went to DC, got in it next, and we were there for like 2.5 weeks. You know, from the middle of January until the end of January, we were in DC doing activism down there for Standing Rock, because there were no cameras in North Dakota. And so the whole point of direct action in activism is to be in front of cameras. Is the idea, to get the message out and to change people's minds and to change people's habits and to get them to either support you with phone calls to legislators or with money donations or by putting their life on hold and traveling with you thousands of miles, whatever it is. So we went to DC with the idea of just disrupting the inauguration and making as much noise as we could and getting like that in the photos, you know, getting our posters in the photos, getting our indigenous relatives in the photos. And so we met a whole bunch of cool activists, and it turned into one of like the most awesome sagas that I've ever been a part of, was that whole inauguration protest. And so when we showed up at DC, we met a whole bunch of local activists and other activists, you know. A whole bunch of people came to protest Donald Trump, as you can imagine. And we were all living in a church in St. Stephen's in DC in the northwest corner. It's like a super historical church of activism. For generations, people have been sleeping in that church in the basement and having meetings and preparing what needs to be done. So it was cool to be in that historical setting, and it was cool to be living with people. You know, we would sleep at night and then package everything up so the church could function by 7 a.m. and then we would have the church back to ourselves at 8 p.m. or something like that. And it was the whole thing was facilitated and became known as Disrupt J20, which is January 20th, the day of the inauguration. And so local organizers had come up with this plan of disrupting the inauguration and they wanted to bring all the activists that were coming to town and unify us, you know, make us more powerful together. And that's the whole theme of resisting Donald Trump, is that, you know, we have to be together. You know, we can't be divided by the petty differences anymore when we're all facing possibly the most oppressive situation this country's ever seen. And so the way an inauguration works, if you've never been, is they basically built a fence around the National Mall and around the White House and all that stuff, and right down to DC, and they heavily regulate what goes on inside that fence, you know, naturally. It's a presidential inauguration. And so that fence had 12 gates. And so this local organizing group of people got 12 groups together in that church, and we were all assigned a different gate. And so, in that sense, it's like autonomous in the sense that nobody's telling us what we can do, and we don't have to like report to anybody, but we're doing our actions at this gate, so that way it can be coordinated with actions at other gates. And so we were all going to shut down the gate at 8 a.m. was the idea. It was super successful, actually. And we would communicate, because when you're doing this level of activism, like trust and knowing people, and the groups that you work with are called affinity groups. It's people that you know, people that you've been through things with, people that you trust, people that you can predict. That's your affinity group. And you're usually unified by a message, whether it's Standing Rock, that was our affinity group, or another group was Black Lives Matter, that's an affinity group. And then like Standing Up for Racial Justice, which is another group, was there, and the vegans were there, and they had their own affinity group in their gate, and the Gay, Straight, Queer, Transgender Alliance had their own gate in their affinity group. And so nobody knew what everybody else was going to do, but we all knew we were going to do it at the same time, and we all were going to do it at a different location, and that was the idea. And we would communicate these ideas through what's called a spokes council, which was a really radical, really efficient way to communicate with people you don't know. And we would get in the basement of St. Stephen's Church, and there would be 12 chairs in a circle, and one person from each affinity group would be nominated by that group to sit in that chair. And those are the only 12 people in a room of 500 that can talk. And there's a facilitator who was this local gentleman who's like probably the best facilitator I've ever had the opportunity to work with. And he would keep these meetings going. And if anybody in a group had something to say, it would get passed up by whisper. Because behind each of those 12 chairs, you can imagine like a spoke. It's a spokes council. There would be a wedge of their affinity group behind them. And so the room was full, but each wedge, was a different affinity group. And sometimes it was extremely visible, like you could see the line. The affinity groups were kind of cool. And then those 12 people would say whatever the group had to say. And it just moved. And we were able to communicate. We were able to be coordinated, but we were also autonomous. So it was a really good model. And this is a photo of us at the gate. So that's like 8 a.m. at Donald Trump's inauguration. And I'm kind of just looking over the action. And the way it was set up was the city blocks. It was one city block wide. And then they would have these bicycle type things. And there was like 6 lanes. And then, so we had that whole city block to figure out how to make it so nobody could get through. And we do that by a whole bunch of different things. So if you hit next a few times. So there's everybody. Go ahead and hit next again. So the way we did it, and we advertised ourselves that morning as like the water protector group. Most of us are coming out from Standing Rock. And we were meeting at a certain park at 7 a.m. and then people of the general public could come and join us, and it's going to be an uncomfortable situation possibly, and we're not sure what we're expecting, and you might be arrested. And so all that was on the table, but about 300 people showed up at that park, people we didn't even know. There was only like 50 of us that were really involved in organizing this. And what we did is we built these PVC, what are called lock boxes, or sleeping dragons is a nickname for them. And it's just a big piece of PVC that 2 people can put their hands in. And a lot of people think that you're either handcuffed to each other in there or you're holding hands. And what you really do is there's a vertical screw that you just clip a carabiner in, and that carabiner has a bracelet on you. So that way you are locked in. People can't just pull you out, but it's very important to be able to get out of those. If things escalate and it gets too violent, you don't want to be stuck like that. And then we wrap them with tar and sandpaper and duct tape and all this crazy stuff, because the cops are going to have to cut you open. That's how you get you out, with a saw. And, so the more difficult you make it, the better, because that's the idea. You're using your body to shut down that gate. As soon as your body's gone, the gate's open. But we made really sweet lock boxes. The security, the social, what are they called? Secret Service, he gave us an A+, is what he said to one of the girls. It's a really good lock box.
Really good what?
Yeah,
Really good what?
really good lock box. So it was one of the best ones. So we had 12 people that volunteered to put their arms in those lock boxes, and they stretched out in front of the gate and shut it down. And then we had like 200, 250 people in front of them in a soft blockade. And another cool thing was we had to figure out how to get those lock boxes to the front door of the inauguration, because those things they're illegal to carry around. You're not allowed to have those. And so we were like, these things are like this big. It's like, how are you going to get this? Like the most heavily patrolled thing in the world. And so this awesome older activist, she's in a lot of books and she's been involved for generations. And she told us one day, she's like, this one time I saw people disguise it as like a flower vase. She's sitting there, I was like, a flower vase? Because for like 3 days we were having discussions, like how are we going to get these there? It was a really big issue. And then so she was right, and we thought about it, and we did it, and we wrapped each one with tissue paper and put flowers in it. And then a few of the girls in the group would just hold it like a giant bouquet and try to hide it, you know, a little bit, and it worked. You know, they got right to the front door with these bouquets, and then they just dumped the flowers. And all 12 of them were super trained, like they had practiced a lot. So within 30 seconds, they went from flower bouquets to like, holy cow, what just happened? And so we shut down the gate in like less than 5 minutes. And we were stoked. We go ahead and hit next. And go ahead and hit next. I guess we'll put back to these. Go ahead and hit next. So you can see like behind, so people would line up like this and shut it down, and then behind them was the gate with the people in the lock boxes. And so we're super excited. We're like, holy cow, we shut it down. And then within 20 minutes, though, like the cops came running in down just one lane. And if you go back to the photo of that kid being dragged out right here, so they just focused on one lane, and there was like 6 lanes. So all they cared about was the middle one, though. And they just dragged all those protesters out, like all my friends. And then all that was left was just the 2 people in the lock boxes. And then like the cops come running down with a generator and a skill saw, and it takes them about 35 more minutes to cut them out. And then the gate opened, and then, but they didn't arrest any of us, which was the interesting part. Like this is my friend Rosenberg, and he would just get carried out to like a couple blocks down, and then they would just drop you, and then you could just get up and like run back to the protest. So, and what we were expecting was like going in there, we were like, okay, we'll probably have this place shut down for like an hour, and we're probably all going to be arrested, and we'll probably be in jail for like 3 days. Like, that was the expectation going in. That's what we were prepared for. But we quickly realized that they weren't going to arrest us for whatever reason, and it just quickly turned into a game of chess. And so like if you hit next a few times, like this. So like after they, for 20 minutes or 45 minutes, they spent clearing out the people with the lock boxes and everything, the gate opened, and all the Trump supporters and people going to the inauguration were going right down through the middle of our protest. Like, and we were like, oh no, we have to shut that down. And it's like, you know, what are we going to do? It's like, well, we need like 30 people to jump those fences, both sides, at the same time. It's like, yeah, let's do it. You know? And that was the most powerful part of that day, is like we had 30 people who were willing to jump fences and deny police orders and risk arrest, and like, and that's what it takes to be effective for some of these actions. So that day was really awesome. For 6 hours, they would move gates and pull people away and shift things and open up the gate, and then we would just react and shut it down. And it was nonstop, and it was very, very successful. And like, I'll never forget, like at one moment, you know, a family that was going to the inauguration was walking by with 2 little kids, you know, and I remember the little girl like asked the dad, you know, like, because you know, some of us were crying, we had signs, we were chanting, and she's like, and the cops told that family they couldn't go that way. Like, there's another gate 5 blocks that way, I'm sorry. And the girl was like, why are they so mad, Dad? What's going on? You know, she's like 9 years old. Like, putting people in that position is why we do this. Not only for the bigger message in the media, but like, you know, what's that dad say to that daughter? You know, why are we mad? We're mad for a lot of bad things. And now that 9-year-old is at least questioning it, you know. And it's funny, I went to George Bush's inauguration, you know, and I was that 9-year-old girl once. And it's not that my family supported George Bush or whatever, but we went, and, you know, and it's, like, I don't see an impossible subject in that 9-year-old girl. Maybe in 10 years, hopefully not, but, you know, so it's powerful, and it's what's necessary. Go ahead and hit next. So the inauguration is coming to an end at like 2 in the afternoon, and none of us have been arrested, and none of us have been tear gassed, and none of us got punched by people, and those were all real things that we were prepared for. So we're super excited, and we're like celebrating, you know, we're victorious. It couldn't have gone better. We had Time magazine there interviewing us and taking photos, and we're on the cover of ABC News at this point. And the funniest part about this photo, and it's not funny, I hate to laugh, but this is Dan again, Rosenberg, who was, that photo of him getting dragged out, you know, that was on the international news. That was the photo associated with the protest at Trump's inauguration at 10 a.m. that day. And he hasn't talked to his mom in like a week. And none of us have cell phones because we've all been standing around for so long. And I remember like walking over, and he kind of had this sad face on for a while. I'm like, Dan, you good, dude? He's like, dude, I gotta call my mom. So she's probably seen those photos. Like, she doesn't even know I'm in D.C. It's like, okay, dude, we'll get you a phone. We'll call your mom. But we marched, and we had a lot of fun, and we had music with us, and drums, and you can see these people are still locked down, and they're celebrating, leading the parade. We have like 1,000 people marching with us at this point, totally unpermitted. It's great. We took an intersection, we did a giant round dance, some marching band came out of nowhere, and like we danced with the marching band for 20 minutes, and it was like the peak of happiness. But then like 15 minutes later, go and hit next. Okay, go back to this. But like maybe half an hour after that photo of the parade, I don't know if anybody heard, but there was some violence at Trump's inauguration. There was a riot. There was windows being broken. It got pretty ugly for a minute. And the saddest part is like that's pretty much all anybody hears about the inauguration is that it erupted into violence. They don't hear about the fact that activists from all walks of life coordinated this beautiful nonviolent direct action and had real change and got a message out. But so after that parade, like, you know, we were marching with about 1,000 of us, and then 3 protesters, like kind of masked up protesters, and like we knew there was going to be some anarchist and anti-fascist protest going on in DC, and we had been in meetings, and everybody knew from the beginning of J20 that a diversity of tactics would be a part of the day, you know, and that's, we remained nonviolent. That's how we wanted to protest, and that's fine. But we accidentally ran into the violent side of the protest. And as we came around the corner, three masked individuals came down and they told us about this situation a block and a half over. They were like, listen, like the cops just kettled the Black Lives Matter group. And kettling is when police form a circle, or sometimes a semicircle. Police trap them somewhere. There's nowhere to get out. And they don't give you an option to get out. Once a kettle is engaged, anybody in that kettle is going to jail. And it doesn't matter how you got there. You could be a journalist, you know, you could be a medic, you could be a bystander, you could have walked out of a coffee shop at the wrong time. There's no questions asked. And it's illegal. It's illegal in DC to do that, and it's illegal in most places, as it should be. But so the cops, they did create a kettle that day, and as the kettle works, you know, they have the circle of cops, and they might have bicycles, and they might have barricades, and they might have shields, or they might just have nothing, but they'll form the circle, and then one cop will reach in and grab an individual, and then that person is gone, and the circle tightens. And then one more person, one at a time, you know, and there's gas going into it the whole time. There might be concussion grenades if the cops deem that necessary. And so that was happening to the Black Lives Matter movement. And so we did decide that we're going to go intervene or see what we could do. And so 1,000 people took that turn. And then as soon as that happened, you know, there's 1,000 people marching towards this situation. That's when the cops were like, you know, no, all bets were off at that point. And they just turned around to us. And they just started launching tear gas canisters, like grenade launchers and concussion grenades, and it got really chaotic, like super violent for a moment. People were getting hurt, and then there was like people were getting trampled, and we have elders with us, Native American elders, and we have children with us, you know, from teenagers down. And there's bystanders, and we're in downtown DC, you know, and it was otherworldly. And I had seen that stuff at Standing Rock and like, you know, that's one thing, but a concussion grenade in downtown DC is like really loud, and then when that begins, all the doors lock in that city, and there's nowhere to go. There's no safety net. There's no, you know, we're out of our element. There's nowhere to hide. There's bricks being thrown by both sides, it seemed, and like concussion grenades, and like the pinnacle of the moment for me was 2 of my friends had ran up, a Native American elder named Raymond, who was coming up in a photo, and my friend Nick, who's a British guy who's, you know, just part of the movement. And they both got extremely tear gas, like fire extinguisher style, you know, as bad a tear gas as it could be. It seemed like there's different levels of tear gas. This stuff was like the most painful, judging by what happened to my friends. And so we got them both back. And after my Uncle Raymond, I call him my elder, he was gassed and then knocked over and then trampled. He wasn't able to breathe. This guy's like 60-something years old. And so he's like in really bad shape, and we get them back to the triage center, which is like around the corner. And there's like 30 or 40 people, you know, some of whom are hurt, some of whom just can't see because of tear gas or whatever it is, and they're receiving help in triage. And like I've got this doctor, is a bystander, is helping my uncle like try to get his breath back, and they're making progress. And I've got my friend Nick, who is like in rough shape, you know, and I've got milk and magnesia trying to clean his eyes out, which is you like with milk and magnesia, and that relieves the pain and gets stuff out of your eyes. And then the cop line came around that corner, and they pushed the protesters back. And as they came around that corner, like it was a triage. It's like a field hospital. And everybody has red duct tape crosses on them that works in this, and it's like supposed to be identifiable and off limits. And I saw one cop just take his gun, the canister gun with a concussion grenade, and just fire it right at us. And this is what I say, like at that moment, it was like indiscriminate. Like nothing mattered. The cops were just ending everything. And that concussion grenade came right into our triage center, which is like the size of this room. And people are on their hands and knees and getting help, and then that thing just blew. And it's as loud as you can imagine, and as bright as you can imagine, and you can't hear it. And then that was like the end of the protest that day. You know, that's how the inauguration day ended. There was no more protest after that. There was no more front line. There was no more triage. There was no more. It was just escape. You know, and I've got Uncle Raymond like hands over mine, like we got to go faster, Raymond, dude. Like we got to go faster. And it was super intense, and it's unforgettable. And it was illegal, and that's the most important part. And there's lawsuits coming out. You know, just today there's a new headline about everything the police did that day is illegal. And I've seen this happen now in DC, and I've seen it happen in Standing Rock, and I've seen it happen in Seattle. And these laws are being broken, you know, and there seems to be no repercussions. And it seems to be getting worse, and that's why it's important to have these discussions. But so 2 days after Trump's inaugurated, he immediately approves the Dakota Access Pipeline. You know, it's way faster than anybody could have imagined. And we realized we've got to get back to North Dakota. And so if you hit the next slide, we do get back to North Dakota on like February 1st, or maybe March 28th or so. And you know, it takes a while to get to North Dakota from DC. And we, as a community, we're like, okay, pipeline's been approved. Still, like nobody's talking about us. Like this is crazy. We need to generate excitement. We need to do something to get in the news. And so as a community, we decide we're going to do an action and there's about 70 of us that are willing to be arrested for this. And so at 2 a.m. on February 1st, or 2 a.m. February 2nd, actually, we sneak up the backside of a mountain, which this is a little bit north of camp, in between camp and the pipeline, and like the no zone, like the police don't want us there. And so at 2 a.m. we sneak up there with plow trucks and everything, and we're under cover darkness, and we erect 7 TVs as fast as we can. Because with images like this, and a direct action like this, it's all about imagery, and it's all about the symbolism. And so the 7 TVs are representative of the 7 nations of Little Dakota Sioux. And that's super important that we have 7 TVs. And we have a sacred fire there, you know, and all this stuff goes into it. And by like 2 in the afternoon, the police are making their way up to us. And so we just formed a circle around a sacred fire, and we were just going to sit there in prayer and engage the police and just explain to them like why they don't need to do this, and like, you know, they're on the wrong side of history, and you know, we're fighting for water not for ourselves and not for these people of Standing Rock, but also like their children. You know, these are mostly North Dakotan citizens, and just trying to break that divide. And you know, and instantly like another story that's like hard to believe. But if you go to the next photo now, is so like here you have the National Guard like coming up our hill, and we're up top, and it took them like 3 hours to get there. You know, we had made it difficult. But you can see we have protesters over here too, because as the state police and as the Bismarck Police Department and the Sheriff's County Office, which were the 3 main units that would consist of these people, as they were coming, there was also private mercenaries that were hired by the pipeline that were actively, they lived in the same camp as the police. You know, they would make the presentation. They were like the decision makers of the whole movement, is what we're finding out today. The Intercept, which is my most trusted source of information online, is slowly releasing documents and articles as we speak this week, exposing what's called Tiger Swamp, which is essentially the modern day version of Blackwater. And when we were up here, you know, those mercenaries, they came around the backside on snowmobiles and private pickup trucks. And like they don't have badges. They just wear scary looking black clothes. And these guys are huge, and they're like all ex-military, and they get paid well, and they're like hand-picked to be the strong arm of these private corporations. Like these are bad dudes. You don't want to be face to face with them. And it was unbelievable that they came there and they formed a line that was 40 to 50 of them, and they had baseball bats in their hands. And they just stood there and formed a line, and this is our line of protesters, kind of like forming a line like to like prevent them continuing to come. But they would just sit there for like 45 minutes to an hour with baseball bats and like walk 10 feet and just like point to you with a baseball bat. and then like make it seem like they were coming. And at this point, they had unleashed attack dogs on people in North Dakota. People were bitten by attack dogs. You know, they had done the fire hoses. It wasn't out of the realm at that moment to think that that baseball bat was going to keep coming. You know, and that's why they did it, just to terrorize and to instill fear. And it's effective. But as soon as the National Guard and these people got to the hilltop, you know, and the mercenaries are over there, the National Guard turns right and comes to start arresting us. And the mercenaries get back in their trucks and go back home to have dinner with these guys in 3 hours. You know? And it turns out now that these mercenaries don't even have the proper licensing to work in North Dakota, which was always known by the government. And now they're getting in trouble for it. So like, who's breaking the law here? You know, and those are the questions that we need to start asking and really moving forward with. And like, look at this, like, what are they afraid of? There's 14 individuals in that military vehicle. You know, we got 7 TVs in the sneak of fire. But so 70 of us got arrested, and we were like in jail for like 3.5 or 4 days. We got it next. And so this is actually a few weeks later, but you know, we don't get the media attention that we were hoping to from that action. We got some amazing photographs, and don't get me wrong, it was good, and I don't regret it. But it wasn't the home run we were hoping for. You know, it was all we could really do, but it wasn't enough. And so 3 weeks later, after Donald Trump got inaugurated and approved the pipeline, he said, February 22nd, camp's done. And just like they had said about the 25th, you know, same exact type of thing. And so we were trying our best to get 10,000 people to come back. But it didn't, and there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. And we're learning and moving forward, and so that's good. But, so February 22nd, the military does come. And this photo is actually taken on February 23rd, because we did another bridge action on the 22nd, and we had enough people that we were able to just stop them on February 22nd. And like 3 p.m. on the 22nd, the National Guard and all of them retreated back to the other side of these mountains, which is to the north, where their tents were. They had their own tent city, which was super sophisticated. And, you know, we held camp for 1 more day, and that was really nice, because we celebrated and danced, and like nobody slept that night. And it was like the last night in Oshedi County, which is the name of the camp. And, you know, we knew it was a temporary victory, but we were going to enjoy that. You know, we were going to be there with our friends and family. But then the next day they changed their tactics and they didn't come over the bridge. And like around 10 a.m. as we're sitting in camp on this ridge line specifically, all of a sudden, you know, there's a Humvee, and there's a Humvee, and there's a Humvee, and a Humvee, perfectly spaced out. And each Humvee has 4 to 6 what looked like Marines, and they're not Marines, that's for sure. They weren't Marines, but they looked like Marines. You know, there's no real difference there. So I call them Marines because that's what they acted like. And they came into camp. And just slowly and surely, government next, they started moving through camp. And it was the first action that day, and I call it an action because it was like a big direct action, that I was interacting with police who were, they were scared, just like us. They were, maybe they weren't scared, but they were out of their element. You know, for the first time in my protesting history, the police were just as out of their element as I was, and you could tell, because there was rumors that I think they started that we had rigged camp with explosives, and we had set booby traps, and we didn't. There was none of that. There was never a gun found standing up. I was never involved in a conversation or even heard of one of violence. You know, it was nonviolent, but that uncertainty that the cops, you know, they moved slower. And the cop was no longer in a position to run 20 yards as fast as he could and tackle you and arrest you. You know, he was afraid to. So you could stand in front of the cop for a few hours and say things. And it was interesting to see the difference of a protest when the cops were as uncomfortable as the protesters. And it made things much more dynamic. And so government next. And so this is my Uncle Raymond. He currently lives in Seattle, so I'm still spending a lot of time with him. But, you know, this is like the very end of camp, you know, so in my opinion, like the last minutes of one of the most powerful protests in human history is like captured in this photo. And the cops pushed us all the way to the river on the south. And then we, when they got close enough and there was no more structures, that's when they kind of did the blitz or the rush, whatever you want to call it. And then like 30 more people got arrested at that point. But the rest of us got down to this river and across. to the other side. And on the other side of this river is the Standing Rock Reservation. So the cops that we were dealing with at that point couldn't cross that river. You know, and it was totally gross and totally safe. No issues like that. But then a few days later, like, and I'm going to start speaking faster so I can wrap this up. But what happened that day is that not only did they take our Shetty Chicago, which was our big camp on this side of the river, but this side of the river was called Rosebud, which was the other camp. And there was a third camp a mile this way on the hilltops called Sacred Stone. And so as we retreated to Rosebud, which is where we were going to like set up for a few more days and like, you know, just gradually start to get out of North Dakota and move on to whatever was next for all of us. Like 20 minutes after we're safely on this side, the cops had put up the barbed wire and totally taken this place and started putting the lights up as it's getting dark. The BIA came over these hills in a similar fashion, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And that's the police force on the res. And, you know, if anybody, they're kind of supposed to be good guys. They're paid by the tribe. They're part of the tribe, usually. You know, a lot of them are white, but a lot of those Native officers are Native. And when the BIA came over, they started taking Rosebud. You know, we weren't warned about that. There was no warrant, so we lost a whole bunch of stuff, and it was totally confusing. And it was blatant collusion, which is illegal. Like, you can't have lateral collusion like that across interagencies. That's against the Constitution. But it happened, blatantly. And so we had to evacuate that place. And then, like, at that moment, it's like 5 p.m. on February 23rd. It's like we're now refugees in North Dakota, you know, at this point. We don't have a home. And I'll never forget marching. You know, I was by myself when I started to do this walk because people were doing their own thing. It's like going up and over these hills, you know, and snow up to my thighs, like post-rolling down. You know, I've got like an upside-down American flag. You can see me this photo right here in a megaphone. And I'm just like headed towards this other camp in the distance. Just like, what's going on? Like, where am I right now? But so we got to Sacred Stone, and we started telling them the story because they were definitely our allies, but it was a whole different community, you know. It was my first time in Sacred Stone, to be honest, and I was there for 3.5 months. I just never made it to the other town. And we're like, you guys, the BIA just took out Rosebud, like total collusion, we can't trust anybody. At this point, the BIA was setting up a hard roadblock around Sacred Stone, and they quarantined the whole camp. No more resources were coming in, no food, and it was kind of like a stop and frisk setup. And so the next day we're at Sacred Stone and we're all preparing, and we get this video footage of like 2 of our indigenous friends who are super passive and nonviolent, other people getting tased in the lobby of the casino. So this is the day after Rosebud and Osheti were closed, and the day after we're now quarantined by the BIA and the National Guard. We get this cell phone footage of a friend who just ran back to camp, and he was like, you know, like, these 2 people, like, they're gone. And it showed in the video, like, they were just escalating, like, the cops started to talk to them, and then it was escalating, and then they were, like, trying to get away or whatever, and then both of them just got dropped by tasers and arrested. It's like, those 2 friends are gone. You know, why? We're not sure. And then 2 hours later, we're kind of freaking out a little bit, trying to figure out what's going on. 2 hours later, another friend comes back to camp with video from the roadblock, just a couple hundred yards away from Sacred Stone. And the cops stopped the car, and this video is from the car behind it. And then, as the cops talk into the car in the window, 2 other cops come running from out of the screen and rip open 2 doors in the car, and all 3 people in that car are gone. And our friend in the car behind them who filmed this just like threw his car into a 180 and was like getting the heck out of there and back to camp. And he's like, look at this, like, what just happened there? And those are kind of like social media personalities, and like, they're not celebrities, and I don't want to call them that, but like, they had access to numbers online. And it became clear that people were being targeted, and they were being removed very, very quickly. And so at that point, it was just decided that like the entire state of North Dakota was no longer safe for any of us, you know, whether you're white or brown or rich or whatever. You know, because I had experienced a whole bunch of racism there, and I went out to bars in Bismarck with Native American friends of mine, and we got chased out of bars with people showing us knives and telling us never to come back here, and like that's whatever. But at this point, it was different. It's like nowhere's safe, and so that was pretty much how Standing Rock ended for most of us. You know, there was only a few hundred left at that point, but we all just kind of got out of there that day, and we packed up camp and we caravanned out to Seattle. There was like 10 of us. crazy. And that story at the end doesn't really get told to anybody. Like the level of just, it was very systematic and it was very calculated. And it seems like ever since December 1st, the forces fighting for the pipeline, they got a new game plan and it worked. It was fast. And within 2 months, that place went from 20,000 protesters willing to do anything to 300 of us without access to anything, and the pipeline's now done. So studying that and learning from that is very important as we move forward. We can't let them corrupt. And I'm not saying Dave Ashenko is corrupt, but there's community, ideas he is, but you can't lose the support of local governments. You need to make sure that's steadfast and that's on the right side of history. You can't let the mainstream media manipulate your message and say that this place is just a burning man for white activists. Because it was never like that. All these other fake stories that it's important if we ever get in a situation like this that we're in total control of the messaging and totally transparent and with people of the local area. But so after that ended, I went to Seattle, and you can hit next. You can hit next. So this is like them going into TPs, it's like straight up military stuff. The Department of Homeland Security is there. Go ahead and hit next. Go ahead and hit next. And so that brings us to where we're at now, because there's not too many people left standing up, but there are still people there, and that is in the courts right now, and that's how that fight will move forward. But the pipeline's built, and I believe oil is flowing as we speak, so that's the reality of the situation. But now we're focusing, and a whole bunch of people, on the Keystone XL pipeline, because Trump also reapproved the Keystone XL pipeline, which was very famous. A whole bunch of activism was done 3, 4, 5 years ago to fight that, and it was defeated. I was a young activist at that point, and I was like, we're doing things the right way, we're making change, and Obama denied that pipeline. I think it's great, but now Trump brought it right back on the table, and so that pipeline, basically the way we're trying to fight this is in the banks right now. We're shifting gears because this is an earlier fight. There's no bulldozers in Nebraska and North Dakota and South Dakota yet. It's still in the paperwork process. And so Chase Bank is historically the most active bank with the company that wants to build the Keystone XL pipeline. And so our idea is if we can apply enough public pressure to Chase Bank, demanding that they come out publicly and state they will not provide the loans. It's like a $3.9 billion loan to build that pipeline. Then that's the best way. We won't have to stop ourselves in our bulldozers, and we won't have to have a camp. And everything's about profits with these industries. The oil pipelines, the CDOs, they're turning that oil into millions of dollars for themselves, and they need money to do it. And it's all about the banks and the money. So that's where we're focusing this summer is on divesting, but not only personally divesting, finding out that your bank is using your savings account to invest, because that's how banks work. You have your money in the bank, and then they invest it in whatever they see fit, and then you get to keep your money there, and then you can hopefully else take it out. But so standing up as people and deciding Chase Bank is now making bad decisions with our money, so we're going to take it out as personal. So if you have a $50,000 checking account in Chase Bank, you go in there and you say, you're making bad decisions, I want my money back, and it's going to this credit union, because they do better things with that money, or whatever it is. But also targeting municipalities. So the city of Seattle, as it's a progressive little area, but the city of Seattle divested from Wells Fargo, $3.3 billion as a city. So that's real money. Los Angeles just approved it 3 days ago. I saw the video from my friends who were down there at the meeting, and San Francisco is divested in the name of oil infrastructure, and Houston, Texas, and it's growing. It's growing fast, because Seattle did this back in April, and now it's 36 different municipalities in this country are either doing it or in the process of. And so that's how we move forward, I think, in one way, is starting to really pressure these banks, because without the money they can't build anything. And if we stop giving them the blind control of all that money, and it's in the universities, and it's in the businesses, and it's making these, basically what we need to do is make it profitable for Chase to say no to Keystone XL pipeline, is what it gets down to. They're not going to do it because it's the right thing, and they're not going to do it because it's in the good of their heart. They make decisions on financial decisions. So if we can stigmatize the Keystone XL pipeline enough, that whichever bank approves it is going to be attacked by activists and like shut down, and people are removing their money, and there's going to be bad videos posted online that people share. You know, that's the idea. So go ahead and hit next. So in Seattle, we're shutting down Chase Banks. Go ahead and hit next. That's in North Dakota. But we're shutting down Chase Banks every Monday and every other Friday at this point, and all of us meet in a square, and it's open to the public, and the media usually shows up, and we have roles that we fill, and we have newcomers every week, and we train them real quick on what nonviolent direct action looks like, and why you shouldn't talk to the cops, and why all these things. And then at noon that day, go ahead and hit next. We'll go shut down as many banks as we can in Seattle, and just building momentum, trying to get more people participating, and disrupting business as usual for Chase Bank. So when we walk into these banks to shut them down, you know, sometimes looks like a bike block around your neck to the front door, or sometimes it just looks like forming a circle around the building and doing it that way, or sometimes it's staging, we do mock oil spills in the lobby, or whatever it is. You know, it's all about being creative, being, you know, the imagery. We'll go ahead and hit next. So we do all kinds of things, but Chase Bank still hasn't said anything. You know, so we're going to continue, and we're building towards a national day of shutdown Chase. And the reason we're only targeting Chase right now is because they're the biggest ones. They're the most likely to do this loan. And if they say no, then hopefully every other bank is going to be like, if Chase Bank won't touch this, like, we don't even want to dare. You know, like, obviously the pressure was good enough for them. And it's possible. You know, I don't know if it's going to work, but it's definitely possible. And by the end of August, I think it's going to be like right before students go back to college, we're going to try to have across the country, you know, all the cities shut down Chase with the same message on the same day, hopefully 300 to 500 different banks. And like that, you know, if we coordinate it right, that'll be news. And that'll be, you can't ignore that, you know. Maybe they'll try to, but we'll see. We'll go ahead and hit next. So you can see, like, there's all different ways to do this, and there's no right or wrong way, but you just get a group of friends together who feel empowered and who go, you know, and we're barely even risking arrest these days. Like, we've never been arrested in Seattle. We show up at the bank, sometimes it's only a dozen of us, and the bank knows about these at this point, obviously, and it's almost like they have an elementary school fire drill plan. You know, that's what I compare it to. Like, when I walk into the bank and I start taking things out of my pockets, they realize what's happening, and they don't try to stop me, but they shut the blinds, and they close the doors, and everybody lines up and goes out the back, and it's like, you know, they shut the bank down at this point themselves, and then we just have the space for as long as we're going to stay there. So, yeah, but this could be happening everywhere. So it's like, you know, some people join us for lunch because we've created an environment and a relationship with the police in a situation where it is consistent and predictable, and we're public and transparent, that people can come for their lunch break and hold aside, knowing that they're most likely, and it's important that, like, there's always a chance of risking arrest, but it's really, really minimal at this point. And, you know, imagine if this was going on in most major cities, and that's where we're headed. That's what we're building towards. But, so that's pretty much the end. Go ahead and hit next. I think that's just a bunch of different photos of bank actions. Go ahead and hit next. And then next. Yeah, that's the next photo. Yeah. So, cool.
Thank you, John.